Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
I tell our coaches, man, you got to be jacked and juiced. It feeds now to our kids. And when we leave out of this coaches meeting, whether we've agreed or disagreed on some things, we are together.
Welcome to another episode of the Champions series presented by Signature Championship Rings on Coach and Coordinator Podcast. Today we have the privilege of having Coach Mike Coe, the 5-time state champion head coach of Coffee High School, join us. He won 4 state championships at Maidson County High School in Florida and now has his first state championship in Georgia in his second season at Coffee. Coach Coe shares the details behind his team's success and the meticulous planning that ensures his players peak at the right time of the season. Coach Coe emphasizes the balance between the elements of physical, mental, and team chemistry coming together while avoiding the pitfalls of peaking too early. All this begins with a strong understanding of the team and the staff and their needs as people. We dig into a number of topics here with Coach, and we'll be back at the end of the episode with our Winning Edge takeaways.
This episode is brought to you by our good friends at NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. I'm sure by now you've all gotten back into your Sunday routines, but they could be even better. With NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV, you get the most live NFL games all in one place, every game, every Sunday. And you can even watch up to 4 different games at once with multi-view, one of my favorite inventions of this decade. It's exactly what you need to catch all the action. Make your Sundays more magical. And also, YouTube TV is great. I got it this year. It's awesome. Sign up now at youtube.com/BS. Device and content restrictions apply. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games.
On today's episode of our Champions series, we're talking about preparing your team to peak for the right time. And it's early. We're in camp right now. So thinking about how we take our team over the course of the season so that at the end of the season, when you're getting into the playoffs, when championships are on the line, that's when they're peaking. And joining me to discuss that is a 5-time state champion. He won 4 state championships at Maidson County High School in Florida, won his first at Coffee High School in Georgia, and that's in his second season there. It's Mike Coe, the head coach of Coffee High School. Coach, great to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate it.
So, Coach, I think this is a really interesting topic of how do you get your team to peak at the right time. I mean, we're at the time of the year, camp, beginning of the season coming up here. The energy, the enthusiasm, it's easy right now in a lot of ways, right? Everybody going into the season is undefeated. Everybody's goals and hopes that they have for the season are intact. So it's always easy right now. But the key is looking at this, especially when you're wanting to take your team deep into the playoffs, when you want to win a state championship, that you can't peak too early in the season. And you have to consider all those things and how they build up as you go through the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's where a lot of coaches miss the boat. It's really not how good you're playing in August. It's really about October, November, and hopefully December if you're fortunate enough. And the key thing is having them all available when you start and just continuing to get better and better and better. But there's definitely a formula to it. You got to have a plan. And I think ours is really good, and our kids have bought into it at both places that I've been a head coach at.
Yeah, and as we kind of went over that formula before we got going, there's certainly some distinct parts to it where, you know, thinking about the physical side of things, thinking about the mental side of things, and also that team chemistry. You mentioned to me before that you see teams who over the course of the season kind of lose interest in practicing hard and playing together and all the things that are important as you go on and get into big games. And a lot of that comes from just the fatigue and maybe some things that coming right out of the gate, pushing really hard, spending all that energy early, that it starts to wear on you as the season goes on.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Through the years, I've seen a lot of teams that probably better than us physically and come out of the gate, they're on fire, and then the kids just, sometimes coaches even lose that fire, and it's tough. I don't think people realize the grind of going out every day, especially in Florida and Georgia, the heat, just the grind of going to school and being a student, and then, you know, you still got to keep lifting weights, which I think we do a great job of, and our kids understand, you know, we're going to keep lifting through the season, number one, to keep them healthy, but number two, try to continue to get stronger. I was always told you couldn't get stronger during the season, and I think we do. I think our kids do. We push them in the weight room. And then just understanding, I think it all comes down to a feel for your team and your coaches and your staff, and just recognizing signs and body language. And do we need to change something up? Do we need to ramp it up? Do we need to back off? Using your open weeks wisely, and using, you know, if you're fortunate enough like us to have them in class, man, use every minute in that class time during the school day, that maximize your time there, where kids can still be high school students while playing football. You know, we've got a lot of kids that work at fast food places and stuff, and we'll get into our practice schedule and how we do it, but we still got kids that can go after practice and get a couple hours in at their job, and just because of how we've structured practice and tried to help them with that. But I think it's a key component. I don't think a lot of people, I'm glad you brought this up. I like talking about it. I think it's where you can help a lot of young coaches that don't necessarily get taught this. And man, to me, it's as important as anything you do, knowing how to practice and your preparation. And you know, I tell our middle school coaches all the time, because they practice just like us with tempo and all that, but I'm like, it's going to take you a little more on the front end as coaches. You're going to have to plan this thing and really maximize your time. But once you get into it and see how it affects you, and the kids are going to love it, the coaches are going to love it, you're not going to wear out, you're going to have time, you're going to be fresh in the middle of the season. And our middle school coaches love it, and our middle school kids love it, and parents love it, because you're not out there for 4 or 5 hours. You're not consuming their whole life. It's been good for us. It works for us. It's worked at both places. And this is year 31 for me, and I'm just as excited and anxious and ready to go as I've ever been.
So I think you bring up something really important there, and especially for young coaches and everything I talk about that maybe are mistakes. Believe me, I've made them. But I know as a young coach, I'm studying everything I can. Thinking back then, you know, loved going to college practices and see how they do things. But you, again, have to remember exactly like you said, like as coaches, we kind of have a different approach and mindset to it. I mean, we eat, sleep, drink this stuff, and we go out and learn this. And I think the mistake we make, especially early on, is just trying to apply it as is and not understanding what are the needs of the particular group of kids that I'm serving. That we can learn a lot from the organization and efficiency of practices from other teams, you know, higher levels. But at the same time, we got to remember exactly like you just said, these are kids. Some of them who maybe got to go and, like you said, work at a fast food place afterwards, have other things, you know, maybe got to go home, take care of younger brothers and sisters. There's so much out there that affects these kids that doesn't affect teams at the higher level, because that's more of, I hate to call it a job, but definitely more of a job in how their approach is. So it's tempering those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes down to, again, understanding who your coaches are and their needs. We have 22 coaches, grades 9 through 12 at Coffee, and some of them are married. Some of them have kids that are grown and out of the house. Some of them have young kids that are at elementary school, including myself. We've got 4 kids. My oldest turned 23 yesterday, and my youngest is 6 years old. You know, and that's a story for a different day. But understanding those different needs of your coaches. Our outside linebackers coach come to me, our first OTA we had in June, his youngest son was playing state baseball tournament in Statesboro, which is 2 hours away. And he came in and had a look on his face, and I said, listen, you better go watch your son play baseball. You can't get that time back. We've got 22 coaches here that can handle this. And just understanding, trying to make things, there's some things you can't avoid that you're going to have to meet at certain times and you're just going to have to make it happen. But understand your staff, valuing their time, making sure they believe in the plan and how you do things and all that. And then I think if your staff shows that and there's unity there and they're always, I tell our coaches, man, you got to be jacked and juiced. It feeds down to our kids. And when we leave out of this coaches meeting, whether we've agreed or disagreed on some things, we are together. We are ecstatic about being here. And that just feeds down to our kids. And then our kids understand how hard we've worked on making the plan and making the practice plan and how we're doing things. And then the same thing, you've got to know your kids. You got to know where kids come from, who they live with, right? And you got to know their story. I tell our coaches all the time, you've got to know their story. You got to know why they think the way they do, why they may show up in a bad mood. We've got great kids. I mean, we have very few issues. I couldn't ask for a better group of kids. But, everybody goes through stuff and everybody has different situations. And we've got kids that live in big old houses in the best neighborhoods that we have. And we got kids that live with just their mom and siblings that are barely making it. And that kid might have to go work and help his mom out. And my coaching staff is built of different people. Me and my brother and sister were raised by my mom. My dad wasn't there. He was caught up in drugs and alcohol and all that. And so I can relate to those kids like that on our team really, really well. I've got a lot of coaches that had their dad in their life, had both parents and all that. I've got coaches that went and played major college ball. I got coaches that didn't play any college ball. And so we've got a good mix, but it all comes down to relationships and knowing those kids and what makes them tick, but understanding their story. And then it gives you a better chance to mesh all those stories together, and those kids become more like brothers than teammates. And that's another part of it, too, is doing things off the field with them, with guys that may not look like them and may not come from the same background as them, but you better be together because you're fixing to play really good people, and if you're not together, you're going to be in trouble.
I think some really important things there. One is just understanding the people that you lead. I think it's just necessary for a leader. Like as I said before, we could go and study the Georgia Bulldogs and try to do everything that they do, but there is the human element to this, and it's weaving that part of it into and understanding the needs of the people that you serve. Now, I mean, there has to be standards, there has to be parameters for how you do it, but it's going to help you craft things to your situation. And I think, the other thing is, as you said, it starts with the coaches. When you think in terms of, the football season, I mean, even if you don't make the playoffs, it's at least 13, 14 weeks long with the preseason. I mean, that's a long period of time to be working intensely at something. And, when we're talking about peaking at the right time, I mean, a lot of that stems from where your coaches, because if you spend time grinding them down, if this becomes a chore for them, if they feel the regret of having to miss important things in, their children's lives and their families' lives, that's going to wear on them too. So again, it's understanding what those guys need.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to do a good job of listening to our coaches, especially our older guys that have done it for a long time. And I told them when I first got here, listen, we're going to work our tails off while we're here, but we want to work smarter, not necessarily longer or harder. And I don't want that to sound the wrong way, but, I heard stories about guys down the road that'll park their cars at the field house and have their wives come pick them up, but they'll leave their cars there and leave the lights on, where if the Booster Club people drive by, they'll think they were there all night working. And I just don't think you have to do that. The last 7 years we've been fortunate to win 5 state championships. We're not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. My wife and my kids are more important to me than anything, and tell our coaches that. I'm not going to allow you to – football's not going to be our God. Now, it's going to be what we do, and we're here. It's all in. We're getting after it. But our coaches go and play. I don't play golf, but a lot of our coaches do. They go and play golf together. We go fishing together. We go off to clinics. We have a great time. We'll hang out and grill and watch football together and just do things off the field and birthday parties and all those good things, you know. But, yeah, I mean, I just think you can grind coaches down to where you'll lose a good one if you're not careful. I just think for me, I wanted to show our coaches, number one, I value your time. I value your family and their time. And number two, especially our younger coaches that aspire to maybe be coordinators or be head coaches one day, I want to give them things that they can take to their program and help the game, because I think we're over all the concussion stuff and people attacking our game. But the numbers show that for a little while we weren't growing the game. It's the greatest game in the world. I mean, it's why more people watch it than any other sport in the world. But it's the greatest teacher to me. My coaches made such an impact on me playing for them and just helping me with my value system and being and becoming a man and doing things the right way. And the great Billy Graham said a coach will impact more young people in a year than most people will in a lifetime. And I think that's true, you know, and we have a great opportunity to help young men become good dads and good husbands. And football is such a small part of it. I mean, if you really break down the actual minutes of a football game that kids are actually playing and not just standing on the field, it's such a small part of the time aspect that you put in. And I just feel like we have a great responsibility, much farther than winning a football game, you know, to really help the young men that we've been blessed to deal with and charged to coach and all that. And like you mentioned the college stuff earlier, I've taken a lot of info, and I like to go watch college practices. And I'll tell you, man, NFL practices too. I was fortunate enough a couple weeks ago to watch the Falcons practice at an OTA, and there's just no wasted movement. There's no wasted movement. There's no wasted moments. And not everybody's fortunate enough to have a staff as big as mine, but I didn't have a big staff at Madison. We had 6 to 8 guys every year, you know, but we planned our time. We spent time on the front end and planned our time to the second, and we stuck to it. And if we lost a game, and this is big, I think, for young coaches, if we lose a game, we're not going to go crazy and go adding 20, 30 extra minutes to practice. We're going to believe in our plan, and we're going to stick to our plan, and we're going to continue to get better, and we're going to correct mistakes. And especially early in the season, you've got time. Sometimes losing a game is the best thing for your team. They get that taste, and they understand we got to correct some things. Or it helps you as coaches move people around to different positions. Maybe you had them in the wrong spot. And shoot, man, at Madison, we only had one undefeated season ever when I was there. But, boy, anytime we lost a game, man, it helped us. It helped us to get better. We played good people. We always wanted to play good people to show us our weaknesses, and it helped us get better. But I think the key is spending the time on the front end and planning that thing out every moment, and don't waste people's time.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Honda. When you test drive the all-new Prologue EV, there's a lot that can impress you about it. There's the class-leading passenger space, the clean, thoughtful design, and the intuitive technology. But out of everything, what you'll really love most is that it's a Honda. Visit honda.com/EV to see offers.
Yeah, and that's what I want to dig into here a little bit. Your formula, I couldn't agree with you more. Like the planning up front is what's going to help you peak at the right time over the course of the season. And for you guys, foundationally, this starts with the way that you're going to do things. It's doing things fast, using tempo, practicing fast, lifting fast, playing defense fast and on the attack, special teams, same kind of mentality. So that sets the foundation for, hey, this is the way we operate within what we do. I guess the key to that is, okay, what does that look like for the season? How are you going to practice, as you said, thinking about those kinds of things, especially over the course of the long season?
Well, I think first off, it's a mentality that your whole program has to adopt. And I always sell it to our kids this way. I don't know what you would call us offensive, but we run inside zone, every variation of you can think of. You know, we've added outside zone, but we run buck, we run counter. But I'm a wing T guy. That's my foundation. That's what I played in, what I coached in forever. So we're going to be physical, you know. And I think the difference with us and what I sell our kids on, yes, a lot of teams use tempo, but they're true spread teams. You're getting your quick passing game, but you're normally only getting some inside zone or something like that. We think wing T. No, we're not necessarily wing T. No, we'll play with some 12 personnel tight end and wing, you know, but we're going to insert that H-back on you on both sides. We're going to block down and pull and run buck. We can triple option anything we have in our playbook. Any run scheme, we can triple option it, you know. So what I try to sell our kids on is it's going to be really hard for people to practice for us. Number one, the tempo we do it, but number two, the style in which we play. It's going to be hard for people in 3 to 4 days to prepare for that. All the formations, emotions, and all that, the eye candy, the option game, but the physicality of it. And in turn, our defense is always going to be ready because they practice against us. We feel like we make the game slower for them on Fridays, you know, if that makes sense. And so it's the mentality of that and getting your kid. And our kids believe that. Man, if you look at some of the teams we played in the playoffs, I mean, they're loaded with 4 and 5 stars. And our defense was number one defense in state last year. I think our starting defense gave up like 4.7 points a game, you know, and we weren't huge. The biggest kid on our D was, I think, 235 pounds. And we were a stacked team, but you know, we worked really hard on speed and all that and getting faster. But that mentality, and if your kids buy into it and they believe that, man, that's the huge part of it, you know. And I feel like, Coach, now, obviously it wouldn't be run quite as good if the coaches were there. But our older kids could run our practices. They know exactly what we're going to do on Mondays. They know exactly what we're going to do on Tuesdays. They know on Wednesdays we're going to go down to the stadium. We're going to crank the music, and we're going to work situations like crazy. We're going to start off with 2 minute, iron on iron. We're going to work some goal line. No, we're going to stay up. We're going to be smart, but we're going to work every situation we can think of. They know Thursday during class, they're going to come in and eat breakfast. They're going to go in that weight room and get a good stretch and a little mini lift, and then we're going to go out and do our situational practice, our walkthrough deal, you know, that's going to take about 45 minutes. They know everything we're going to do every day, how we're going to do it, how long we're going to do it. They can tell you how many periods we're going to practice. I mean, and that starts at our middle school, 6 through 12. But down there, I've got great coaches too. And it just happened this year, but I've got me a great guy that runs it down there, Coach Cooper. And then we got a separate 9th grade staff, and they're going to practice the same way. And so it's program-wide, 6 through 12. And that mentality, that thinking, a lot of people call it culture. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily culture, but it's just that belief system. This is how we're going to do things. I tell them all the time, you either got to be better or you got to be different. And we're going to play people that are probably a little better than us at times physically, but we're different in how we do things and how we approach things. And it's going to give us an opportunity to compete with that team that might be a little better physically. And our kids believe that. They know the system. And then offensively, it's a certain way we do things. Defensively, it's a certain way we do things. And those kids know it inside and out. The other day, we were playing somebody, and our defense coordinator was flirting with something that he saw on Twitter. It was an even front, and we're 3-3 stack, and they ran jet sweep, and our fits were just all out of whack. And, I mean, every kid on our defense, every one of them went to him on the sideline and said, man, Coach, can we just do what we do? You know what I mean? Because they know it in their sleep, and we got 6 starters back off that defense, and they know how to adjust to everything. I mean, you can't throw anything at them that they haven't seen, because we've got some single wing stuff we do. We're unbalanced, we're motion, we're option. You know, they've seen everything you can see. So when they just get a traditional spread team or trips or something like that, man, that's like lining up in their sleep. But that's what you want, and that's what I tell our coaches. Man, we want our kids to think like that and operate like that and have buy-in. We've got several kids that we say are like coaches on the field. But I think it's because it looks like we do a lot of stuff, but we're so simple in our approach and everything we do, but it's so planned out, you know, and ready when they get there. It's just, I just think we do things the right way, but we do it in a really good fashion, and our kids love it and our coaches love it. I think, to me, that's the best thing we do. And I'm so glad you brought this topic up, because so many coaches think it's about X's and O's. And I mean, there's only so many things you can do, and you got to be really good at something. You know, you can't be really good at 5,000 different things. And how you practice, to me, and how you prepare and plan and all that. And I just think it's the most important things. And so many coaches miss the boat with that.
In looking at just the season going on, you know, you mentioned the way you practice. You obviously have kids who learn your systems well, that they're able to identify like, hey, this ain't working, coach. So the mental side is there. So how do you look at how that evolves over the course of the season? Practice in that way, obviously they're moving. That's going to be a very energetic practice.
Yeah.
But as you get into midseason, later in the season, playoffs, is there any adjustment to that to keep these guys, you know, again, peaking at the right time?
Well, again, I think we use our class time really well. Now, we bring our kids in. At Madison, we did not do this, but here we do this. We bring them in on Sundays. We just bring in our second block kids, which is about 56 kids, really our varsity kids. And we bring them in on Sundays, and we get our big lift out of the way, and we watch film. We basically put the week before behind us. So our coaches come in from 1 to 3, get everything done from grading the film, get all that done. Then the kids come in at 3, and we'll split them up, offensive lift, defensive watch films, and then they'll flip, and then we feed them. We'll feed them pizza on the way out. And, you know, it's not necessarily, you know, we've got some kids whose religious beliefs that may not allow them to be there. We don't penalize them for that. They'll just lift Monday during class, while other kids were handing out stickers and all that. And then what we do is we start getting into the game plan Monday during class with the varsity guys and all that. So I think that allows us to really it's almost like an extra day. It just gives us a jump on things, you know. And so I just think kids like normalcy. They get in a plan there, and I think if you change it up a lot, some kids, it messes them up. Now, we do things sometimes. We throw stuff at them just to have some adversity, just to put us through some things that we may have to get through during the season. But we try to stay as normal as possible, and they know that routine. You know, like I mentioned earlier, they know that routine. But again, I think you got to use your class time. I really think we use our class time really, really wisely, and it allows us, again, especially early in the season. I know the question was about later in the season, but I think in South Georgia, Florida, early in the season, it's so dang hot, you know, and you spend your whole summer trying to put weight on them and get them strong as oxes and all that. And, man, if you ain't careful, especially with us, like our corners, our DB is going to play a lot of man, you know, or man free. And they're running, man. Every snap is a burst, and they're running. And with tempo, you're getting a lot of snaps at practice. And so your running backs and receivers, and you got to be careful. You got to take care of them. You got to make sure they hydrate, and they got to eat extra and all that, or them jerkers, man, they'll lose a lot of weight. To me, it's easier in South Georgia and Florida, you know, once October, November gets here, because the weather cools down some, and they're not taking that beating as much from the heat. And so, you know, like last year's team, we'd been here the year before, went to round 3, but they had never been to the semifinals or the finals. And I just, like our experiences of, I've had offense coordinators been with me for every state championship game and all that. And we just tried to really, really treat it like any other week. And I thought our coaches did a great job of not getting too amped up and too high and didn't show any signs of, man, this game means more because it's the semifinals, or this game means more because it's the state championship and it's in the bins. And again, though, I think it comes down as a head coach, you've got to have a feel for where your team is, right? And have your kids watch film and are they overconfident, or have your kids watch film and maybe they're a little nervous, or your kids had never been in this situation, so are they a little too amped up, or, you know what I'm saying? There's just little cues and little things that I'm fortunate enough now, because I don't necessarily coach a position, and that's just what I look for, and that's what I watch for, and I just try to find little things that we can adapt to or fix or change, and I'll find certain kids, you know, like last year, we got a kid, Anthony Paulk, he's at Charleston Southern. He enrolled early. He's at Charleston Southern. He played corner and then came over and played some really athlete on offense. And then Tyreek Edwards played free safety for us and then came over and played some receiver on offense. He's going to Cumberland next week. Both of those guys were 3-year starters. They started as sophomores the year before I got here. But I would, you know, I had a group text with just me and those two kids. I felt like I could really trust them. And I would try to get the temperament of the team, and I would ask them questions. Fellas, do we have anybody struggling with anything? Do we have anybody that may be doing some things they shouldn't? Do we have anybody that's got some issues at home? And I just asked, and then I told them, it'll stay with me, but I need you to help me help your teammates and help our team. Do we have anybody that's nervous about where they're playing, or is there somebody I need to bring them off and fire up and boost their confidence? I've always done that. I'll have certain guys on the team I feel like I can trust and just ask them to be 100% transparent with me and honest and all that. And those two kids did that, you know, and that helped me help our team. And I'll do that with our coaches too, you know. And again, I just think it comes down to relationships, planning your plan. And I don't know that it really matters what part of the season it's in. I just think it's knowing where your team's at, what their psyche is, and you being that model of consistency. You know, I tell our kids all the time, do you see me freaking out? Do you see me worried? Do you see me, man, it's a football game. God created this game for you to go have a blast. You have worked your tail off for this, right? And we have the man in the arena quote. We're not worried about a scoreboard. We're not worried about what any sapsucker in them stands has got to say. None of that. Man, nobody's doing this work, but you are the one that has put your time into this. Now just go out and play loose and free. And I tell our kids and our coaches, I got the widest shoulders in town. Something goes wrong, I'll take every bit of it, every bit of the responsibility. You don't worry about losing a game or messing up. You just go do what you do. I'll handle the rest. And I think that gives our kids and coaches great freedom to just go get after it and let the chips fall where they may. And if it turns out bad, man, we're not going to love you any less. I'm not going to go in there and cuss you, and I'm not going to add 30 minutes to practice, and I'm not going to bring you in on Saturdays and practice extra. And that's another thing on Saturdays with our coaches. I tell them, man, just get your stuff done, but don't call me, and I'm not going to call you, bugging you. You're professionals. I trust you. If I didn't, I wouldn't have hired you. Just get your stuff done, but spend some time with your family and get recharged and get ready to go. And I think our coaches respect that, and I know our coaches' wives really respect it. So I don't know if that answered the question, but
Coach, you answered a lot of questions. Yeah, definitely.
I really love talking about this topic, man.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I appreciate you sharing everything here today, giving us a peek at what's helped bring you success at Madison and now at Coffee High School. And just want to thank you for your time and wish you and the Trojans the best of luck here in 2024.
Man, I appreciate you having me. I appreciate what you do for our sport, and especially coaches. You do a great job. You always have. And you're big time, buddy. You invest in this thing far more than X's and O's. I really, really appreciate that.
Here are winning edge takeaways and ideas for implementation. 1, build relationships and the team chemistry. All the things we talk about, trust, transparency, strong relationships within the team, are fundamental to a successful season. So it all starts there. Coach Coe discusses the importance of understanding the players' backgrounds, monitoring their mental state, providing them support throughout the season, and he also applies that to his coaches. And The approach helps him create a cohesive team culture where everyone is feeling valued and motivated, and this in part allows them to continue growing as the season goes and peak at the most important time. Number 2, strategic planning and routine. Coach emphasized again and again the importance of their planning and maintaining that consistent routine throughout the season. He talked about his fast-paced practices and the efficient use of their classroom time and the schedules that instill discipline and readiness in the team throughout the season. He ensures that his players know what to expect each day, and the coaches can create a sense of stability for the team as they go through the season. And number 3, monitor physical and mental well-being. These are such important things. You don't want to peak too early when you have these guys keyed up early season and all the emotion is spent early. They may taper off, they may hit a lull, and you want to build them to that crescendo at the end of the season. Coach Coe highlighted the need to adapt practices to manage fatigue, especially in the heat of Georgia early on. And again, he's monitoring his team throughout the season so that they can peak when it's most important as they make that run into the playoffs and strive for another state championship. Be sure to visit coachandcoordinator.com and check out the 10% Toolkit, which highlights our partners and some of the offers they have to you as a listener. The link to that is in the show notes. Follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com and follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.